Oh boy. So the Phoenix Suns have been eliminated from the playoffs. A team with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker did not have the horses necessary to push for a playoff spot or even be close to being considered a contender. That has to be extremely rough for this team after it's now been 4 years since they've been in the finals. To go from that to this, that has to suck. I'm really sorry, Suns fans, that you're dealing with this. So the Suns are terrible for a lot of reasons. The ownership is at the head of it. Matt Ishbia, been the owner of the Suns now for about 2 years. Trying to fast track a championship has failed miserably. What he didn't know is he didn't learn from Mikhail Prokhorov. We weren't aware in the early 2010s. Mikhail Prokhorov bought the Brooklyn Nets and tried to do the same thing. He tried to speed run a championship. Well, he paid for Joe Johnson. He paid for Jason Terry. Then he traded for Darren Williams, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and that resulted in them becoming basically a tune-up team for other contenders like the Miami Heat, the LeBron James Miami Heat. And as a result, the roster quickly dismantled. Paul Pierce left in free agency. They traded Kevin Garnett. Darren Williams was bought out of his contract. Joe Johnson was also bought out of his. And that team basically just fell apart and was completely unrecognizable even 2 years after putting that roster together. It resulted in them becoming one of the worst teams in NBA history in 2017. I think they were 12-70, and they gave up a ton of draft capital to the Boston Celtics. The Celtics are who they are today thanks to the Brooklyn Nets. As for Matt Ishbia, a lot of the moves that the Suns have made was because of him. The trade for Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton to get Yusuf Nurkic, all that was him. I have to say, if you're a Suns fan, do you prefer Robert Sarver? Do you prefer him over Matt Ishbia? Like, I don't think either of these owners are good. Ishbia is too quick to pull the trigger on making decisions, and Robert Sarver was a cheapskate who was also a piece of shit. I don't know which one would be better. I really don't. The owner who does way too much meddling and fucks everything up, or the owner that doesn't do shit and still finds a way to fuck it up. I don't know which is worse. The second point of emphasis with the Suns, Bradley Beal. Definitely Bradley Beal. He is a huge problem for the Suns right now, and there's really no debate about it. He is a guy getting paid $50 million this year and will continue to skyrocket that salary for the next 2 years. And I say 2 years after next year is a player option for 50... It's $57 million in 2026. 2026-27 will be $57 million as a player option, and I don't think for a second he will consider declining that player option. In his case, I think what's going to happen with Bradley Beal is he's just going to get bought out. I don't know if it'll be this offseason before next year rolls around. He's getting almost $54 million. But he's going to get bought out of his contract at some point. Overall, the Bradley Beal trade first of all, I never understood the trade in the first place. You traded for a second shooting guard. He's a guy who needs a point guard to set him up. And the fact that they didn't get a point guard until recently in Tyus Jones or whatever, I just never understood the trade. They would have been better off just keeping Chris Paul, honestly. Chris Paul, I think, was getting even less money than Bradley Beal. Go figure. And because of Bradley Beal, they also gave up a ton of draft picks, but for the most part, the Bradley Beal experiment has failed in Phoenix, and the worst part is you can't really get rid of him by trade. He has a no trade clause unless he waives it to a team that is enticing enough for him and wants to take on his contract. You're not going to be able to move him. So the only option I see for him is buying him out. It's plain and simple. The Kevin Durant situation, I think, is reaching a crisis point. That is for sure. Especially because next year, if you aren't aware, is the final year of his guaranteed salary. I don't think a team is going to give up a lot to get Kevin Durant. He will be turning 36 next year. What team out there is going to say, all right, give me Kevin Durant and I'll give you this, and this to get him? That's not going to happen. You're going to get a first rounder, maybe some second round picks, and then that's it. I don't think KD is going to net you a lot when it comes to an offseason trade this summer. But whoever does get Kevin Durant will still be getting a quality basketball player. KD is still an all-star when healthy and can be a second or at this point maybe just a third option for a title contender, and you just run from there. The next thing I want to talk about is actually the draft picks the Suns have, which looks like they still have first rounders for this year and moving forward, but in reality what's actually happened is all these first round picks they have all have stipulations where another team has the rights to swap with Phoenix if Phoenix has the better pick. OKC, Brooklyn, Houston, they all have like pick swap opportunities to take Phoenix's first rounder if it's a good first rounder, like if it's a top 10 pick. They can swap with them. And that just doesn't bode well for a team that really needs to start hitting the reset button. Like the Suns will probably reset this offseason. They kind of need a top draft pick to get that going. And that's the case with every first round pick for the rest of the 2020s. They may not have their own first rounder until as early as 2031. And mind you, Yusuf Nurkic, he was traded at the deadline with a first rounder to Charlotte. And with all these issues that Phoenix is having with roster construction, the lack of salary cap, and the lack of draft capital, I really wonder if Devin Booker will be a Sun much longer. I don't know if it'll be this offseason or maybe it'll be next offseason, but I don't think he'll be a Sun much longer. He says he wants to be a Suns lifer, but I just don't know how much longer he wants to thug it out with a roster or a team with this many issues consistently for the next several years. I just don't know if he wants to deal with that. I think it's time for the Suns to really just consider moving on from him. If I was a part of the Suns organization, like if I was the general manager and I had any say over roster construction, yeah, I would just go ahead and hit the reset button. There's not a lot you can do with this team this year, and there's not a lot you can do moving forward. The experiment has failed. Everything you've tried these last 4 years have failed. It's time to start over. It's time to get the next era of Phoenix Suns basketball started, and that should start first with buying out Bradley Beal's contract. You have to trade Kevin Durant, especially when you still have Devin Booker. You can trade Kevin Durant and get less value out of him than what you traded to get him, because as long as you have Devin Booker, he'll get you the most assets possible. I think for a Devin Booker trade, you're looking at 2 to 3 first rounders minimum. If a team becomes really desperate to get him, I could see him netting 4 first rounders at most, 2 to 3 minimum, and that's where you go on from there as a Suns rebuild. You'll probably tank for a few years, but hopefully by, I guess, 2034, the next era of Suns basketball is a contender. We'll just have to wait and see till then. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below. That's it for this one. Till next time, you guys be safe out there. Have a good day.